Oh boy, what time is it now? Oh, okay. It's 10:35. Okay, so we are looking at time in this lesson, and this is part 5, EDM 60204. I'm so sorry. I thought that it's week 5, but it's actually week 4. Okay, and do apologize for all the bam boom sound which you hear. Now, you will be able to explain measurement sense for time and explore activities leading to measurement sense for time. All right, let's begin with the analog clock because we know that when we are talking about time, we have two types of clocks. One is the analog clock, and the other one is the 24-hour clock. So this is an example of an analog clock. It is based on 12-hour time. So it does have AM and PM, but it's not shown in any analog clock. So it's like we already know when it is AM and when it is PM. Okay, so AM it will be daylight and PM will be night time. So the shorthand here that you can see, it is showing the hour. Okay, so here it is at 10 p.m., 10 o'clock. So it is, the hour is at 10. Now the long hand shows the minutes, and the long hand is on the right hand side. And then you can see there's the red hand. Okay, so in some analog clocks, they do have the third hand, which goes around quite fast, and this hand shows the seconds. So we have the short hand showing the hour and the long hand showing the minutes. And the third hand shows the seconds. For an analog clock, you will put the AM and PM at the back of the numbers to show daylight or nighttime. That's very important because when you look at the clock here, you will see that the time is 10:15. But is it AM or PM? So we do need to look at the weather outside, whether it is daylight or nighttime. Okay, in all analog clock, there will be the long hand that shows the minutes. Now, each part is 5 minutes, as can be seen in this picture. So from 0 to 5 and then to 10, so it will be divided 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So each part that you see where the minute hand actually, or the long hand that shows the minutes actually shows, that is 5 um, 5 places. Okay, so let's watch this video. It's a song on analog clock, and hopefully you will understand how to explain it to your students when you do teach them.
I wanna tell you all about my Saturday, but before I do, listen, I've just gotta say 60 minutes make up every hour on the clock, and 30 minutes is half an hour. Tick tock. So remember on the clock, 30 is half an hour. Now let me tell you of the day that almost went star. Oh yeah. I was headed to the park. I decided to walk as I left moving up with vertical line. When that long minute hand points right to the points, a short hour and points to the time we can tell. When the hour hands on another hands up, we know it's o'clock. We know it's the sun. If the hour hands right between numbers per second, we can numbers per second. Hour starting that day. With the long minute hand that represents the minutes that by, it seems so tight, it seems so tight. Each number on the clock just 5 minutes and minutes. If it's good, come by find and tell us time like it is played. After hours playing, I took my sidewalk chalk. Thinking, wouldn't it be fun to draw the time on the clock? Time on the clock. 3:30 for hour 30, half past 3. The minute hands at 6 halfway round, which is 30. Which is 30. I remembered I had, Lexi. Her house was far away, so I left in a hurry.
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock.
I got to Lexi's door and then knock. She entered the door and was pointing to the clock. The hour hand was right between the 5 and the 4. The minute hand was at 6, pointing down toward the floor. So the time was 4:30, and she looked annoyed.
You said you'd be coming no later than 4.
Oh boy. When the hour hands on another hands up, we know it's o'clock. We know it's the sun. If the hour hands right between numbers per second, we can numbers per second. It's only 30 that day. With the long minute hand that represents minutes that lie, it seems so tight, it seems so tight. Each number on the clock is 5 minutes and minutes. If it's good, come by find and tell us time like it is played. We went to the movies and they bought us 2 tickets. The movie we went to see started right at 6. The hour hand was at 6. The minute was at it up. She said,
Are we almost late? Are we almost late?
yeah. I was like, oh yeah. When we finally got a seat and she told me I was cute, but I'd eat things for lunch and it out aloud too.
12, 31, 32, 33, 12, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 38, 39, 30, 37, 38, 39, 30, 10, 30, 11, 30.
On the way home we walked by the fishing dock. We looked up and saw that it was now 8 o'clock. The minute hand pointed up, the hour hand pointed 8. The hour hand
I'm
at the
supposed to be home by now. Oh, great.
So we went off in a hurry. We found it to get Lexi home fast, so she wouldn't be grounded. When the hour hands on another hands up, we know it's o'clock. We know it's the sun. If the hour hands right between numbers per second, we can numbers per second. It's 30 that day. With the long minute hand that represents the minutes that rise. It seems so tight, it seems so tight.
Okay, so you can actually go to numberrock.com and you can find lots of songs pertaining to lessons, and then it could fit into your the class that you're teaching. Okay, so let's continue with the analog clock. Now this analog clock shows the time as 7:54. Okay, because you know the shorthand between number 7 and number 8, so this is still 7, and then this is 50. Okay, because you have the 5 in between. Okay, so it's 54, but is it AM or PM? So we need to look at the background. So it's quite dark. You can see that it's grayish in color, so it should be 7:54 PM. This is when we put in the AM and PM title at the back of the numbers. Next. Okay, so we have a clock and we have windows. So this analog clock actually shows that it is 11:05. So is it AM or PM? Is it daylight or is it nighttime? So let's look at the window. It is daylight. So since it is daylight, it is AM. It's still in the morning because it hasn't gotten to 12 noon yet. Okay, so anything that is below 12 noon, it is still AM. That means it's morning. Okay, and after 12, it is not nighttime yet, but it is already PM. Okay, let's say you're wearing a wrist watch and you go hiking, and then you sit on top of another mountain and you see this mountain here. So the time actually shows 1:53. Okay, is it AM or PM? Is it before noon or after noon? So we look at the weather, we see that it is afternoon. So we say that it is 1:53 PM. So PM could be afternoon or nighttime. All right. Let's look at the second type of clock, which is called the 24-hour clock. Okay, this system is actually used a lot, and you can see for yourself at the railway station or the MRT station or the LRT station, airports. Okay, so they will tell you when is it that you're supposed to board the plane, bus stations, and then boats, as well as the old video or DVD recorders if you still have them at home. Microwaves, yes, they still have it, and then some watches. Okay, so you can actually buy either an analog watch, or a 24-hour clock or watch. But you need to be familiar with it and its relationship with the 12-hour clock. So we know that the 12-hour clock, we need to put in the AM or the PM based on daylight or afternoon and nighttime. Now for 24 hours, we just look at the digits. So in this picture, you see that we have 4 digits to express the time. So your left hand, which shows 24, this will be for hours. Okay, so the first 2 digits for hours, and then the last 2 digits is for the minutes. So the minutes will be 00. Okay, there is a misconception though. When you read the time in a 24-hour clock, and if it shows 13:30, so you will need to read it as 13:30. So be careful not to confuse with decimal points. Okay, decimal points, there's only one dot, but for 24-hour clock, it will be 2 dots, or what we call as colon. So it is wrong to read the time as 13.3. Okay, please ensure to use a colon and not semicolons or decimals. Now, this picture is a picture of soldiers. So when they read, oh, sorry, this is the boarding pass for business class airplane ticket. Okay, it is from New York, USA, flying to Melbourne, Australia. And the time, the boarding time is actually 12:10. You can see here on the right hand side, 12:10. Gate 31G. Now back to the soldiers. Um, it is confusing when children watch American war movies or American movies where they have the soldiers there. The soldiers will be saying that, let's say we have 1500. Okay, so they will say 1500 hours. Okay, so they will put it as 1500 hours, which is quite confusing for the children. So you need to tell the children that when they watch American movies or any movies, that is how they're going to announce the time. But in mathematics class for 24 hours, they need to say it correctly, 1500 hours. Okay, it is necessary to breach through 60 when working with minutes and hours. Um, so children tend to think that after 60, there will be 61, 62, 63, etc. They do not realize that when the clock actually reaches 60, it's another new hour. That means it stops at 60 and it starts back at 1. Okay? So a new hour and it must go back to 0 with their counting. So you need to, because you know this is a problematic area, uh, pay attention to this, give them more exercises, um, have them role play, have them talk to each other about this so that they can get the concept. Okay, so it is crucial that you plan activities and discussions around this potential misconception, because if your student doesn't understand how this works, he or she will not be able to look at the 24-hour clock correctly. Okay, the abbreviations of AM and PM. AM means ante-meridian, which means before noon, and PM means post-meridian, which means after noon. So this means 12 noon is neither AM nor PM. Same goes with 12 midnight, it is neither AM nor PM. So we just say it's 12 noon or it's 12 midnight. 12 noon is when the sun is directly on top of our head. You cannot see any shadows around you. So the shadow is actually under you. So that is 12 noon. Okay. What about in the 24 hours? It's the same. But for 24 hours, 12 noon is 12 noon, but 12 midnight will turn to 2400 hours. That's the only difference. Okay, so this is the relationship between the 12-hour analog clock and the 24-hour clock. Okay, so in the 24-hour system, the time 1 minute after 23:59 is not 2400 but 000 hours, which is the beginning of a new day, and we call this 0 hours. So it is not officially 24, but it will turn to 000 hours. Okay, or 0 hours. So when the time is 0 hours, it does not mean that time has disappeared, but it goes back to the original state of 000 hours. So similar to a thermometer, when it reads 0 degrees, there is still a temperature that we can feel. Okay. So this is something that you need to let your students sink in. Do not rush when it comes to this part, because some of them might need a slightly longer time to absorb it. Okay, so the best way for you to do this is to create opportunities for the students to actually use the 24-hour system in the classroom. Let them role play, let them create um, activities for themselves, or you create activities for them as well. Okay. Okay, this is the main distinction between a ratio scale and interval scale. You need to know what ratio scale is and what interval scale is. So in ratio scale, the zero means nothing. Okay. For example, length of 0 meter is no length, because there is no length. Because when you say 0 meter, that means you're not actually measuring anything. A mass of 0 grams is nothing, because we are not measuring anything. So there's nothing there. And a bottle containing 0 milliliters is empty. So when you look at an empty bottle, there's no water or no liquid in it. That means it's totally zero. So it's a ratio scale. Let's see the difference between ratio scale and interval scale. So interval scale hold no true zero and can represent values below zero. Ratio scale, it does have its zero, and when it's zero, that means there's nothing there. Okay, but for interval scale, you can measure temperature below zero. So the thermometer, it does have 0 degrees Celsius, and then it has a -1, -2, minus degrees Celsius. So thermometer is an example of an interval scale. Now for ratio scale, it does have a zero, and that zero means nothing. That means there's nothing there. So measuring tools that has a ratio scale will be like rulers, uh, roll meters, because you know that there is nothing negative there. It starts from zero, and that zero means nothing. Okay. All right, next, the measurement sense. So again, let's recap what measurement sense is, and this time we are going to look at time. So the first thing is to identify the measuring tool, and second is to identify the measuring units that you will be using, and then writing the measurement process. How do you do it? Okay, how do you measure it? Okay, so the measuring tools for time. Let's start from the left with that wonderful bluish clock. So this is your alarm clock. And then we have the sand clock, we have the digital clock, and then we have the timer, and then we have the 24-hour digital clock. Okay, the alarm clock follows 12-hour clock. The sand clock doesn't follow 12-hour or 24-hour. Uh, it has its own hour. Okay, digital clock, this one here is actually following the 12-hour clock. Timer is in seconds and minutes and also hour, and the 24-hour digital clock will be like this. Okay, let's identify the units for time. So we have seconds, we have minutes, and we have hours. So the students will need to know which hand will show the hours, which hand will show the minutes, and if there is a third hand, okay, that will show the seconds. But for students who are very young, just teach them two things, minutes and hours first. Okay, so let's identify measuring process for time. So the process of how to measure time is here, and you can show how young students can identify seconds, minutes, and hours. Sorry, They also need to be able to convert from seconds to minutes, minutes to seconds, minutes to hours, and hours to minutes, and then second to hours and hours to second. So you can show how to do this using two clocks. That means you bring the clocks to the classroom so that they can hold it, they can see how it works, okay, and they can read the time for analog clock as well as for a digital clock. Sorry, 24-hour clock. Okay, let's look at the process. The process of how to measure time. Let's first use an analog clock like this. So this is an analog clock where you can see the hands and the numbers on the clock. The short hand shows the hour, the long hand shows the minutes, the third hand shows the seconds. Okay, but that is optional. It depends on your textbook when you are teaching your students in the future. So the hand that goes very fast will show the second. Once your students are able to identify these hands, you can now start designing measuring activities, including these three components or including the two main components, the shorthand and the longhand. Okay, using the 24-hour clock, this is how it's done. So you can see the numbers on the clock. Students will see the 24-hour clock will show numbers from 100 to 2400 or 000. Okay, 0 hours. So daylight is from 100 to 1200. This is the afternoon. Okay, sorry. This is daylight. That means AM. Okay, from 1 a.m. to 12 p.m. Okay, so that means it starts from 1 to 12. And then nighttime is from 13 to 24 or 000. So you need to show this to your students how they read the 24-hour clock. So once your students they are able to identify the different numbers to show whether it's daylight or it's nighttime, or AM and PM, you can now start designing measuring activities. So that's the end of this lesson on time, and you have been introduced to analog clock as well as 24-hour clock. There are other things that you need to teach your students, like 5 minutes, okay, on the analog clock, and then the 24-hour clock. Bring more examples, and let them use it in class. So you will have two clocks. One is the analog clock, and the other one will be the 24-hour clock. So your students can see um, and read the time on both. Okay, that's another idea for you. Okay, that's all for today, tonight. This is the end of the lesson for week 4. I'm sorry, I kept on repeating and saying it's week 5. So it's actually week 4. Bye.